Chapter 304 to 306. So these are the so-called children of my eldest son. Kaguya's voice gently resounded through Rei's head as he watched Yagura and Yugito spar, using full Bijou mode. They were currently quite far from the village on the other side, using one of the more remote, and therefore massive, training grounds. Two humongous beasts tore into each other with sheer physical might that rendered the surrounding country in shambles. Pieces of trees flew through the air, craters littered the ground, boulders were smashed into pulp. The fight between Bijou was brutal and savage from the perspective of an outsider, yet both Rei and Kaguya, who watched through his eyes, knew they were just playing around. After all, no Bujudama was involved yet. Yeah, that's Esabu and Matapatabi, the Three Tails and Two Tails respectively. Rei nodded. This was the first time Kaguya saw what Hagoromo did with Jubi. The 9 Bijou were created after she was already sealed, and since Hagoromo basically adopted them, Kaguya was somewhat of a grandmother to them. Needless to say, Rei had a blast feeling all the conflicting feelings within her through their mental connection. He already informed her she had 2 long-dead grandsons and also that their reincarnations are still plaguing the world. Okay. Using the word plaguing might have been a bit too much, but she didn't have to give him a migraine for an entire day because of it. No. Women. That was the reason why Rei watched the Genin test of Team 7. After all, both the reincarnations of Indra and Ashura were there. That event was both fun and not. Seeing Kakashi's suffering was very entertaining. Seeing Kakashi brutally beat the shit out of Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata was also very enjoyable and nostalgic. It made Rei remember his own days as Jonin-sensei. Unknown to him, Mei and Ringo involuntarily shuddered when he was remembering those times. What wasn't fun was feeling Kaguya's feelings as she watched the spectacle for the first time. Rei actually regretted making the mental connection between her and him. The sadness rolled out of her, seeping through the connection and ruining his merry mood. Kaguya wasn't sad because of seeing her grandsons nor was she sad that they were injured by Kakashi. She felt sad, regretful, and copious amounts of self-pity because she didn't feel anything watching Sasuke and Naruto. No familial love, no sudden spark in grandmotherly care, nothing. Kaguya was sad because she simply couldn't bring herself to care about them. Logically, she knew they were somewhat of a family to her, yet her heart refused to acknowledge it. That sent Kaguya into a long pondering mood that ended with her requesting Rei to show her the Bijou created by Hagoromo. Hence, Here he was. They are quite feisty, Kaguya dryly remarked as yet another shockwave reached Rei's position, making his clothes flutter in the fierce wind despite the massive distance between him and the fighting Bijou. Yea, they have been married just a bit over 2 years and they already pulled their Bijou into their marriage quarrels. I wonder if it is the after-pregnancy crisis or if this will be the new norm in their relationship. Rei wryly responded, thinking about the explosive relationship between Yugito and Yagura had after their daughter was born. So it's not the Bijou who is in control? Kaguya rhetorically asked, already deciphering the answer from Rei's thoughts. Rei knew the thing she asked and the thing she actually wanted to know were 2 different things. He didn't bother waiting for her to elaborate and ask a proper question and decided to answer what she wanted to know. No, Asobu is one of the laziest beings alive. In the past he couldn't be bothered to fight even ninjas trying to seal him. Since I remade his seal, he is mostly sleeping his life away. Yagura can use Bijou mode only because Isobu allowed him to, stating it would be too troublesome having to be awake for every fight of his host. Rei explained the circumstances between Yagura and Isobu's cordial relationship, feeling Kaguya's amusement through the mental connection. As for Mata Tatab, single quotes. Rei trailed off, feeling a bit awkward having to explain the cat. She is a massive pervert who just loves to nag Yugito to have sex with everything that walks. It is actually a wonder how she became like that, considering she is a chakra being. Rei knew that while Matatabi might be a female in spirit but bodily she is asexual. That's why her antics were quite a curious thing. I personally blame faulty Kumo seals, Rei added. What do you mean? Kaguya asked in confusion. You know how we have this mental connection between us, right? Rei hinted at the answer and felt Kaguya's mild embarrassment. The connection suddenly went silent, causing Rei to chuckle as he remembered Kaguya connecting to him when he had sex with Conan. Now that was both an amusing and awkward situation. Unfortunately for Kaguya, after Rei explained to Conan why he suddenly stopped, he showed not an ounce of care or embarrassment that Kaguya watched. Poor Kaguya was trapped watching the two going wild at it while being mortified and feeling like a perverted voyeur. Yet, she was also far too curious for her own good to stop watching. Worse yet, some of Rei's sensations seeped through the mental bond. Shortly put, Rei could hear 2 sets of womanly moans that night. Stop remembering it. It's embarrassing. Kaguya's aggravated yell made Rei rub his temples. You promise not to bring it up. She mentally mumbled, and despite the headache she previously inflicted upon him, Rei couldn't help but smile as he could clearly picture her blushing from head to toes. Yes, I will stop embarrassing you now. Happy Rei teased with an eye roll. Don't yell again or I will cut out the mental connection. Weirdly enough, he got a distinct feeling Kaguya pouted. Anyway, yeah, Matatabi probably had a few experiences with feeling and sensation. Leakage through seals which resulted in her perverted nature. She is quite an honest and kind individual though. If she wasn't, Yugito wouldn't live to see a double-digit age. Ray wryly smiled, remembering the atrocious seal Yugito had on her body. Then again, it was no wonder Matatabi was both perverted and kind to her hosts with how they were treated in Kumo, a sloth and a pervert. What a great family legacy, Kaguya deadpanned. We'll look at it from a positive angle. At least they are one of the most powerful beings on this planet. Ray nonchalantly shrugged. That makes it even worse, single quotes Kaguya mumbled. She had her hopes up for the Biju as they were powerful enough to be able to help against the Otsutsuki clan. Getting to know that 2 of the 9 were a pervert and a sloth was definitely not reassuring for her. Ray wondered if he should tell her that Ichibi is murder hobo and Kubi hate-filled tsundere, but decided that one revelation like this was enough for the day. He didn't want to bring her hopes down even more. Fortunately, he had the foresight to give himself a bit of leeway with their mental connection, so he could hide his thoughts from Kaguya when he wanted. So, do you feel anything for them? Ray decided to change the topic and instantly got his answer when a wisp of resigned sadness seeped through the connection. No, I can't consider them as my grandchildren. No matter the circumstances behind their creation. The sheer thought of that is ridiculous, Kaguya sighed. Well, at least you are not giving me a headache with your self-pity this time, Ray teased. Single quotes Kaguya harumphed, and cut the connection between them. Well, Ray's comment clearly made the woman come to different thoughts. That was as good a win as any in his books. As Ray watched the preceding battle between Yugito and Yagura in their Biju modes, he suddenly sensed an approaching chakra signature coming towards him from the direction of the village on the other side. Ray sighed and instantly created 4 shadow clones, sending them to create a barrier separating the fighting Biju and him, not wanting the approaching person to be affected by the shockwaves. He knew it was time for a report from the spy network, but since Conan didn't mentally send him anything, he thought this was one of those rare peaceful days when nothing of importance happened. Apparently, he was wrong. Sitting down on a boulder, Ray waited. It took 20 more minutes before he could see a form of heavily breathing Izumi Uchiha jumping through the treetops towards him while clutching a file to her chest. It was honestly cute how she gave it her all to rush with the report to him. Such eagerness, single quotes, Ray chuckled, as if it mattered if I was made to wait for 5 or 15 more minutes for the report. Anything extremely important would be reported by Conan through our mental connection anyway. Poor girl. She was definitely sent on this errand because she annoyed Conan with her questions again. Ray knew Conan liked Izumi. The girl was eager to please and desired to prove herself, putting her all in every task. Conan saw herself in the girl, although Ray really didn't see any semblance between the two. Naturally, he wisely kept quiet about it and just nodded in agreement when his wife asked about the topic. Unfortunately for Conan, Izumi was one of those people who needed things explained to them at least 3 times before they understood them. Mentoring her proved extremely aggravating for the brunette. Then again, Izumi was also one of those geniuses that once understood something, they would start using it in unexpected ways nobody sane could think of. Maybe they are a bit similar. After all, Ray idly pondered, remembering all the irritating paper jutsu Conan created over the years. Izumi finally arrived, landing close to the place where Ray sat. Her face was bright red with a small hint of exhaustion as she animatedly tried to present the file. She clearly wanted to start speaking, but it was difficult through all that gasping for air. Amusement clearly written in his face. Ray took the file Izumi tried to hand to him while offhandedly commenting. It is always fun to see one of the village's S-rank ninjas gasp for breath like a freshly graduated genin. Izumi was still red from head to toes, but now the reason for her redness was different. How easy ... Single quotes Ray inwardly snickered, watching the young woman with the corner of his eye. In the past few years, Izumi became one of the cornerstones of his village. The strongest Uchiha her clan revered her. They even offered her the clan head position again, but Izumi for some reason rejected and continued working under Conan. It's her again, Kaguya suddenly stated. You are still here. I thought you got all pouty on me and decided to sulk in your new bed. Ray offhandedly teased, the corner of his lips twitching when he felt Kaguya stiffen. He realized he nailed it right on the head. Well, that didn't mean he was going to rub it in though. Hemph. I felt a familiar chakra around you, so I decided to take a look. I definitely didn't want to talk to your witty ass again. You are good only in small doses. You jerk, Kaguya mentally scoffed. And let me guess, today you are overdosing, right? Ray rolled his eyes. Honestly, whatever insult she could muster, it wouldn't faze him in the slightest. After all, he could feel her enjoyment from their banter. Before Kaguya could return some witty remark of her own, Ray continued. Anyway, by familiar chakra signature you mean Izumi? No. Yes, I definitely mean that love-struck Uchiha girl in front of you who is cutely blundering around like a bumbling fool whenever she is in your presence. It's funny to watch, Kaguya giggled, and Ray could feel her genuinely smile. Honestly, from all the descendants of mine, she is the most heartwarming one. That's mighty praise coming from the rabbit goddess herself, Ray remarked while pretending to read the utterly boring report. Why was he even getting them? Ah, right, he was the person in charge. Sucks to be him. Well, the girl deserves it. She did awaken Rinnegan. After all, Kaguya proudly nodded, and that was another thing. Tsunade went ballistic in her experiments 2 years ago, and Izumi was a prime candidate to become the Uchiha lab rat #1. The reason for that was simple. As a part of the village hidden on the other side, the Uchiha clan had the right to refuse, and they promptly executed it. Izumi, as Conan's apprentice, had no such luck and was promptly volunteered by her mentor. Although Conan knew Tsunade would be returning her apprentice in pristine condition, Izumi, the poor girl, however, had no idea. Tsunade blended Senjutsu DNA into Izumi, and at the end of the experiments, Izumi awakened Rinnegan. Frankly, it was a shock even for Ray, who knew about the ancestry of the two clans, not to mention Tsunade, the Uchiha clan, and others. Apparently, it had something to do with Izumi's strong eternal Mangekyo sharing or whatever. Ray didn't really care about all that scientific crap. The girl awakened the purple freaky eyes, and that was that. Needless to say, Tsunade promptly rejected any request to perform the procedure on other Uchiha. She only wanted to give Senju clan's physical prowess and potent yang chakra to the village's ninjas. Evolving Izumi's eyes was not in the plan, so when it happened, the entire project was quickly scrapped by Tsunade. The next thing you're gonna say is that you want to adopt her. No, Ray dryly stated, giving the clueless Uchiha girl a gentle smile, flustering her a bit. He couldn't blame Kaguya for her fondness for Izumi. Kaguya's close family was dead, so she only had distant descendants. From what Kaguya said, it was hard to care for those. With such diluted blood ties, Kaguya mostly judged familial relations through the chakra of a person. It was indeed true that chakra was special for each person. Much like DNA, Kaguya could feel chakra on a whole new level of depth, and the second she saw Izumi, she instantly recognized the girl awakened Rinnegan, as according to Kaguya's words, it purified the girl's bloodline, making her closer to Otsutsuki. What a perfect vessel, were Kaguya's exact words. Alas, Ray shut down that idea pretty quickly, and Kaguya learned to not mention it again. Fortunately for Izumi, the woman then grew fond of her clumsy act around Ray. Otherwise, Ray had no doubt Kaguya would be plotting possession right about now. Oh, Ray suddenly halted, finally finding something interesting in the report. Kumo and Iwa are naughty. I wonder how that will go. His lips widened into a smirk. Looking back at Izumi, who was curiously glancing at the file while trying to be subtle, he closed it before handing it back to her. Go and give it to Tsunade, will you? She can handle the rest for now. Right now, Izumi grimaced. She just ran here from the village, and now she was supposed to run back to the village. She couldn't help but curse the prick who decided these training grounds will be so far away from the village. Unknown to her, the prick stood right in front of her. Ray chuckled, stretching his arm before patting the young woman's head, causing her to lower it and subconsciously lean into his palm. Well, it's 2:30, as I know Conan. She will want to report by 3 p.m. since afterwards she is leaving her office. You've got half an hour to get back to the village. Ray trailed off, seeing how Izumi's eyes widened in panic. It's already so late, she exclaimed, her eyes turning red before she disappeared into thin air. Ray blinked with a frozen smile on his face, looking at his outstretched hand patting air. You look like an idiot. Kaguya's amused remark didn't help his internal turmoil. Ray sat in the living room reviewing the copied disassembled versions of seals that kept Kaguya a prisoner in the moon. This was his main project for quite some months now, and he was making albeit slow, but acceptable progress, immensely pleasing the rabbit goddess, who always watched with rapt attention when he was doing this. Honestly, it surprised Ray how driven the woman was to learn more about her proverbial prison shackles. For a princess who never bothered to master her inner power, her desire to better herself startled Ray. Then again, who was he to prevent her? It didn't matter to him anyway. Hagoromo had quite a lot of knowledge of old sealing arts that didn't really use chakra but nature energy. Studying these seals gave Ray a massive overview of how sealing worked before the humans in the elemental nations received chakra and were taught how to utilize it. Sealing arts were very old practices that changed drastically over the past millennia. That was actually the main reason why Ray's progress was slow. He was basically rediscovering a long-lost way of sealing with no guidebook, relying only on deconstructing very complex seals, while trying to glean the secrets behind their making. That was the main point why Ray didn't mind Kaguya learning how to prevent them from affecting her again. The modern way of sealing was far too different, so even if she knew how to disrupt this archaic one, Ray still had a working trump card against her, or at least, that was his initial intention. But the more insight he got to her head, feelings, and thought process through their mental connection, the more he realized he would most likely not need it. Then again, better safe than sorry. As he was browsing through some papers with drawn parts of a particularly hard-to-decipher seal, he was suddenly embraced from behind by a pair of gentle hands sporting nails decorated with blue nail polish, instantly revealing the identity of its owner. Ray's lips curled into a smile. Hello, Conan. He gently put his hand over hers. How was your day? Izumi was being difficult. You just couldn't help yourself and tease her when she was giving you her report, could you? Conan said in a mock-accusing tone without any heat behind it as she placed her chin on the top of Rei's head, leaning against him. Well, she is just so easy to tease, I sometimes find it hard to resist, Rei chuckled, getting an amused eye roll from Conan while her lips slightly curled. Not to mention, I am well aware of your intentions, he nonchalantly added, causing Conan's eyebrows to twitch. I guess you would be, wouldn't you? Conan resignedly remarked, lifting her chin from his head while her hands moved from the embrace onto Rei's shoulders as she started to rub them. I admit that starting to invite her to our family dinners was not the subtlest move. Aren't you going to ask why though? Curiosity seeped into her tone. I don't need to. You clearly care about the girl. Considering our familial arrangements worked all these years, you probably don't see any problem with having a new addition to our family. Rei Riley shook his head. He wasn't exactly pleased with this discussion, especially not with the silent observer who was extremely interested in the topic and most likely forgot. Rei could feel when the mental connection between them was open. Before Conan could start speaking again, Rei continued. I guess you already roped Tsunade in since she helped with elevating Izumi's strength. The Uchiha clan might have been deceived, but seriously, she didn't really need an Uchiha to try experimenting with the Senju bloodline. If my assumption is correct, you wanted to grant Izumi the ability to easily access Senjutsu. Am I wrong? Rei narrated in an impassive tone, lifting his eyebrow in curiosity about the correctness of his own hypothesis. That didn't go exactly according to the plan. Conan sheepishly chuckled. Still, the results were extraordinary, and the girl did get stronger. That's so... Rei hummed in agreement. Since you have Tsunade already persuaded, the only problematic person would be Pakura, considering both Mei and Ringo see you and Tsunade as their quasi-parental mentor figures and would listen to you. Not to mention Ringo would most likely not care as long as I don't stop caring for her, while Mei is quite close with Izumi. Pakura already agreed. Conan's eyebrow twitched in annoyance as she said that. In Rei's harem, Conan was basically the leader. She was with him the longest and was arguably strongest out of all his girls. Frankly, it was questionable who would win between her and Tsunade, but Tsunade was never interested in being dominant. Pakura was the only one who occasionally challenged Conan, and to be honest, it was a breath of fresh air for the blue net. If Tsunade disagreed with her, she would simply ignore her opinion. If Ned disagreed with her, she would simply pretend to not understand until she made Conan annoyed enough to give it up. If Ringo disagreed with her, she would simply turn around and go back to her forge, giving Conan a silent treatment. That said, all three of those held Conan in high regard, and them disagreeing seldom happened. Even then it was quickly resolved. Pakura was different. She didn't grow up or live with them for years before she became a part of Rei's harem. As such, she was the only one who still didn't have her own way of preventing arguments, and opted to actually argue with Conan about certain decisions. Honestly, it really helped, as Conan knew she was not infallible, and having a different perspective on things usually helped to reveal errors she might have overlooked. Yeah. Considering she is also raising her little windy murder machine to one day join our little family, I can see why she would agree. Rei's lips twitched into a shadow of a smile before he shook his head in amusement. She really started to care about that girl. Are you okay with that? Conan asked in worry. We are basically trying to force you to take more women without asking you about your feelings. Well, if you tried to force me to accept them, I would be pissed, Rei dryly pointed out. This awkward matchmaking maneuvering of yours though. I am honestly amused and willing to give Izumi a chance. He shrugged. Doesn't mean I will accept her. I guess we'll just have to wait and see where it will lead us. Conan showed a sincere smile due to his answer and leaned around his head, giving his cheek an appreciative kiss. Thank you. Rei closed his eyes with a sigh. Great, now I won't be able to focus. Putting down the papers, Rei slowly turned around to face the quietly smug Conan as she licked her lips, knowing her kiss made his focus go bye-bye. You minx, you are basically asking for it with those seductive amber orbs of yours, Rei exasperatedly whispered, and before Conan could reply, his lips smashed against her as he pulled her body closer to his, hauling her around the backrest of the couch as they made out. After a few moments, Conan pulled away enough to break the string of saliva that was connecting them and straddled Rei, whose back was pressed into the couch. She put her hands onto his chest, feeling up his muscles without breaking their eye contact. It greatly pleased her when she saw the raw desire in her lover's eyes. Even after all those years together, she still evoked the same lust in him as when their relationship started. Then again, her eyes no doubt showed the exact same want if the way she felt was any indication. I have no idea what you are implying. This is all purely educational. I am just showing Kaguya how to keep her man happy, Conan quipped, causing Rei to chuckle as he could feel Kaguya's embarrassment. Needless to say, the mortified but guiltily curious rabbit goddess didn't cancel the mental connection. Witnessing the couple having their intimate fun the whole night,